Hello, guys, and welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I think I should do every intro like that. You know, just bring it in, people. This, actually, do you know what? I should have gone for, good day, mate. Welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. That's terrible. I've been told time and time again by my guest co-host that my Australian accent is just terrible. And, of course, I'm talking about my good friend, Rich Carter, who joins us today as a guest host. He's a British guy himself, but he's been living out in Australia with his amazing family, for the last few years. He's come over to see us. And I was like, we can get you on a podcast. That'd be really, really fun. So we had a podcast lined up. We had to reschedule, so that wasn't happening anymore. And he was genuinely like really, really sad that he couldn't come on the biscuit. So I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can sort something out. So I threw a message out on Facebook and asked if anybody would like to jump on at last minute. And our guest today, Kate Mclanachan, came on as a guest. Like that day was like, okay, I'll come on. And we did. This episode is fantastic, and it happened so last minute. And it's got a guest co-host that's come all the way from Australia. What's not to love about this episode? Honestly, it's really wonderful. And before we get into it, and no spoilers or anything, but this is about Kate's book that she's beautifully written. And the link for the book is in the readout for this podcast. Now, I don't normally like to sort of make sure you buy something. I don't like to always forcibly sell things on the biscuit. I think it's a bit crass, but we've set a challenge out on this podcast that to see where in the world we can get people to buy Kate's book and then put in the review on Amazon by the power of the biscuit. So if you want to do us a favor, if you want to do Kate a favor by buying her book and, sort of spreading the word of great Shropshire authors, maybe, dig out a few quid, buy the book, and on the review, put on there, by the power of the biscuit. That'd be so much fun. Wherever you are in the world, the further away, the better. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to get on with this podcast. Thank you so much to Rich for coming all the way from Australia just to do this podcast. I joke. He did lots of great things to see family and friends and stuff, but mostly the Shrewsbury Biscuit, of course. Thank you so much, Rich. You were great. Enjoy the episode, folks, and I'll catch you guys at the other end to tell you about some great events that are happening local to you. Hi guys, and welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm Alex Whiteley, and no Verity today. I've exchanged her in for I was going to say a newer model, but that'd be a lie. Today I'm a guest co-host, a good friend of ours from Shropshire, but who's now living in Australia. Popped by just to say hello. I was like, you got to get you on an episode of the podcast.
Hi, Alex.
It's Rich Carter. All right.
Yep, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
This is really good. I thought, Rich, while you're in Shrewsbury, let's go and have the Shrewsbury experience. Go and watch a game.
We did. We watched some football.
I think you put it perfectly saying we turned up, but I don't think Shrewsbury did. They lost 3-0 to Peterborough, which is very unfortunate, but these things happen.
It was a shame, but we had a nice pint.
And it was a nice pint as well. We were like, this is quite a clean pint, I think is the best way.
Absolutely. Shout out to Hobson's. Thank you.
Yeah. It'd be even better if it was for free. But and today we're speaking to local author Kate Mclanachan.
That's right.
Did I pronounce it right?
You did, yeah. That's right.
Fantastic. We're off to a good start today with this. So, Kate, first of all, before we get into the book, are you Shrewsbury born and bred, Shropshire born and bred?
I moved to Shrewsbury when I was 19, when I did my nurse training, and I've sort of lived in Shrewsbury or around it really ever since. I've always been a Shropshire nurse and stayed within the area, but I actually was an RAF baby, so we lived all over the place, born in Cyprus and lived in Stafford and Newport, Shropshire. So yeah, I consider myself a Shrewsbury girl really, because that's where all my experiences, of life really started for nurse training.
When it comes to the county, I feel like each town of this county sort of feeds the county in its own way. And I always talk about, I feel like Shrewsbury's a very good place for art and writing and physical art, and and then you got Telford that's coming up with music at the moment in an amazing way, and then you got all the amazing stuff that's going on with Rocking Horse, with the filming stuff that's going on there. I feel like there's certain aspects of the county that sort of bleeding into each other. It's becoming quite a good hub of culture at the moment, which is great. I feel like there's a little bit of everything for everybody along this county.
A hub of creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that inspire someone who is creative in their own right? You can look around you and feel inspiration everywhere.
Definitely. I mean, when I don't people watch when I'm walking through the town, I'm looking up at the buildings. I've always loved history, although I didn't actually take it at school because I didn't like the history teacher. I took geography, but yeah, I really like it nowadays. So I love the town, and I think I got more interested for the love of Shrewsbury. I got to meet Lorraine.
Big shout out to Lorraine. She came on the show a while ago. Lorraine, if you're listening to this, by the way, we're well overdue. Her coming back on the biscuit. I remember, right, because one of our specialities on this show is relaxing people, okay? Because a lot of people come on the show and yourself, you're like, well, that looks very daunting, that microphone. But within 5 minutes, we're chilling, we're laughing. It's great time. You don't realise you're actually on the show after a while.
Yeah.
And Lorraine, when she came on the show, she was a bag of nerves. So we did it with Stan Sedman. At her house, and we set off, and she was like so I remember standing on the side of a kitchen, sort of biting her nail, like, oh my god, no, microphones. And it was fantastic. So, Lorraine, if you're listening, I might be coming your way soon.
Oh, definitely.
Which is a great service to this town, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in fact, Lorraine designed the book cover.
Did she?
She designed that, yeah. And what I did is I used the what do you call it again? The thing on the top there, the picture on the top.
Yeah.
I've forgotten the name now. It's completely gone. She's an artist in Canada, actually, that allows me to use those. But Lorraine did the book cover, and she's done my next one as well, which I'm still only on chapter 3, but she's done the cover ready for me. So we are quite good friends.
Very specific type of photography that Lorraine's become really good at now. Yes. And it's kind of her lean in, what's the word? Her niche. There you go.
Yes,
her niche.
Definitely.
But she's very talented. Now, with you living in Australia, Rich, do you pay attention to a lot of things on Facebook, but local groups, local pages? Do you keep up with all this?
Shrewsbury pages.
Shrewsbury, Shropshire, Telford?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I still subscribe to the Shropshire groups. I'm familiar with the photography from Lorraine.
Yeah,
and it just helps me keep in touch with home. And let me know still what's going on. Keep in touch with the people that I may know or the people that I don't know. So it's almost it certainly helped me with the transition, of maybe not sort of feeling so homesick, and so I could still keep in touch. And Facebook's great for that, and not just family, keep in touch with family, but keep in touch with the wider community.
Yeah. I think it's important. You can't forget your roots, can you? No matter where you are in the world, and Facebook sort of helps that along its way. Now, when it comes to the material in your book, would you say that this is a collection of you and your experiences through life?
I think it is, because a lot of it is about mental health, past and present. And I've been a mental health nurse now for 34 years, hopefully retiring next year and then just going back part-time. So, yeah.
Do you know you're not the first author I've spoken to that's got experience in mental health? Simon Bell's a good friend of ours.
He's a colleague. He's an ex-colleague of mine and a good friend, yeah.
He's a very nice guy.
He is, yeah.
And I forget, there's another author I've spoken to recently that's also done mental health or support work in some sort of role. What do you think is so popular about that role that creates creativity?
Well, I mean, the old buildings we used to work in, of course, a lot of us worked in Shelton Hospital, which is now apartments in town. It became very interesting. You'd hear from staff when you were very young who'd worked there for 3 or 4 decades, who were talking about staff that they knew of 4 decades before. So you'd hear what it used to be like. And a lot of us perhaps got interested in that. I know Simon writes about different subjects, but yeah.
Yeah. For those who don't know, I mean, we have just recently done an interview, me and Simon, but he was the first ever episode of the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. And when people ask me what was your first ever episode, I was like, we talked about genocide. It's like, but yeah, rightly so though. I think you should definitely have those conversations. When do you realise that you want to become a writer? Is this something that happens later on in life, or is it sort of a bit of burning desire of yours for a long time?
It's always been there. I mean, my mum always says, when I was 6 years old, a teacher said, "Can I just have a word?" She said, "I asked the children to write about a train, just a little story about a train, and mine went over a cliff." I think I've always had an imagination, and I think I'm not, I think coupling together my knowledge, I suppose, as a mental health nurse, and then researching what it used to be like. So my whole career has been around mental health. I've got an imagination and I love history, so I've combined the three. And some people have actually, some of the reviews.
Can I have a look at the book? Sorry.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I've had some pretty good reviews, and people are saying, normally I get fed up with books, or I don't really like novels, but because it's a lot about the facts about Shrewsbury, people are liking it. People that don't normally like that kind of book. I mean, there is witchcraft in it, but of course it comes from the cunning folk of Shropshire and of all over the place. It used to be, I write a little bit further on than when witches were burned or, hung.
Yeah.
But I write about families who had other people, because it's often hereditary that went through that.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, mate.
I always get ribbed by my my co-host for my other show, the Owl and Tom of it all, folks. Make sure you check that one out. Brand new, 3 episodes in. We're having a whale of a time with that show. But we worked together for years, and he's always given me a ribbon because I was kind of raised Wiccan when I was younger.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like it's something that isn't considered as a contemporary sort of religion or way of being, but it's a lot older. Yes. And was a lot more widely spread until the Romans came along, and kind of did the whole Christian thing. So I feel like it's good that there's a lot of stories that are kind of including that kind of background in a way that isn't like, because I think Vikings did it in a very sort of sinister way with the TV show. They did a lot of ritual sacrifice and, but this wasn't always about that. It's all about care and consideration for the environment. And I feel like that's really important when it comes to when you think of that kind of religion, that kind of background.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there was so much persecution going on. And often these people were the only medical care that you could afford, so local people would go to cunning folk for simple remedies to, to cure ailments. But if anything went wrong, they started to get accused, didn't they? And so if somebody lost a baby or something like that, or somebody died, they'd suddenly be seen as having put a bad spell on them. So what I've tried to incorporate is simple cunning folk, but actually they're a little bit more than that. And they try and put right some things that are going on in the workhouse. And although it is fiction, there was actually something going on because this is the Shrewsbury School now, the workhouse.
Yes,
yeah. But it used to be a mental health hospital, didn't it? A mental health hospital.
Well, it was the workhouse, but it had a mental health asylum on it, which is what I write about. Okay. So my character, who's mentally ill anyway in the present day, goes back in time, meets her ancestors, but ends up feeling fine in the past. So there's no paranoid delusions and hallucinations going on anymore. She's not depressed, and she ends up working there and tries to put right some things that happened. So it is a time jump book, which aren't always that popular. I mean, I've always loved Doctor Who because I've got 2 lads, but but I tried to make it as realistic as possible, and I was dreading it the day I put it out. I thought I'm going to get some terrible reviews. So far, I haven't. I've been lucky.
Are there any snippets of characteristics that you've put on the characters in the book that you've got from people you've met along the way? Have you sort of introduced that subtly into the book?
Yes, I've had to be very subtle.
Yeah,
because obviously with confidentiality,
absolutely.
And a lot of my patients, some of them aren't with us anymore. But yeah, it gave me ideas of experiences that I'd encountered that I'd seen, But obviously, because I started off going to write about Shelton Hospital, which is where I worked for, until it closed, really. Although I've been in the community, I was always back seeing patients that were admitted. So I tried to do it for that, but ended up going back further. And part of me wants to go back further as well, because there was, look, if you think of the Bethlehem Hospital in London where people were chained to walls and stuff. I mean, it fascinates me, and obviously it's awful, isn't it, what happened?
Yeah, I feel like, again, talking about Simon Bell and the conversations we've had on the show before, I feel like you do need to have those conversations, but I guess when you're trying to sell a book, it's a bit different, isn't it? Yes. It's kind of like, not everybody wants to read about that sort of stuff. I guess when you put subject matter like that in a book, you kind of half your audience, like a warm knife through butter.
Yeah, I mean, my mum said, it took me a while to get into it. I could only read 1 chapter at a time. I had to keep putting it down because it is quite gory. I mean, there is a scene where somebody in the workhouse who murders somebody else gets gets executed. And I do go into detail of where it actually used to happen in Shrewsbury, which was near Mount Pleasant. You know, the grass at the end there, you probably know about this, where they used to hang people. But I also go into where they used to move the horses out the way, really. And once the horses and the cart have gone, which they're on the back of, they're hanging, you know. I do go into some detail, like the executioner is allowed to keep all the clothes, but often they're not very good clothes, but he's allowed to keep, you know. So try and bring fact into it, but keep it fictional. But it's not for everybody. It's not. I always say it's not for the faint-hearted in my books.
That's kind of right up my alley, to be honest. I like a bit of grit in my stories, to be honest. When you speak about For the Love of Shrewsbury, obviously that's got a great connections to Stan Sedman and a lot of historians in town.
Yes.
I guess being part of that community, you've had access to a lot of historians and a lot of access to actual history to maybe throw into your book. Was that a good connection for you?
Oh yeah, I went on a lot of the tours that Stan put on with the shuts. I mean, I mentioned the shuts quite a lot, and just describing what Shrewsbury used to look like, because there's only 20 or 21 shuts now that you can walk through, aren't there, in town? But there used to be hundreds, which of course is just an alleyway which gets from one side of the road to the other. But you know, but I try and bring things in, like with the things that used to happen at the King's Head in Mardle, and you know, how the prostitutes used to be chased out by the police and then they come through the back. But there's what I've tried to do with this book, because it starts off with, you find out that her and her brother and her mum used to go to St. Chad's Church, to the Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, sort of fake prop gravestone. But actually that comes about in the book, and when she goes into the past, when she starts to realise that this grave is significant. Because Lorraine Fletcher and I've actually sat there trying to find out what the inscription is on the other end, because we believe it's a real grave.
That was just scrubbed off and used as a prop.
Yeah, I think it was. But then other people say, no, I know the person that made this. It was purely a prop. Because they did some filming for Charles Dickens' film, The Christmas Carol, didn't they?
Of course they did, yes. Yep.
Just so that they could propel him sort of over the graves, didn't they? They sort of did him on a track, you know. But actually this gravestone, lots happening there. I mean, I've got a description of a rat king. Have you heard of that?
A rat king?
Yeah, it's when often rats will hide in an area, and if their tails get entwined, and it can be through any kind of sticky substance that it happens, and they move as one. So if you go to any of the museums, you'll see like mummified rat kings. And I mean, that'd be terrified if it was alive, wouldn't it be terrifying? But
I've heard of Bat Kings.
Yeah.
I have. The original Batman. The original Batman is a Mayan god.
I've heard of Rat King Cole.
Rat King. Hey! We went to the Gold Museum in Colombia. My wife's from Colombia, so we went there. And they have this effigy of a bat god, and he's got it looks like a bat, and it's called the Batman. And so I remember taking a picture of it, going, "This is the real Batman, folks." But it's very cool. I love the idea of effigies, so things like that. That, you know, when you think of animals, what god would you be like? So think about this, listeners. If you were a god, what animal would you represent? You know, that's a good thing.
That's a tricky question.
Yeah.
And I always talk about, because I'm not a very religious person anymore. But I always think of like a sort of metaphorical sense of karma. So like, it sounds daft, right? But if I was like a really snaky person, did horrible, nasty things to people all the time, I'll always be remembered that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, that's kind of what I think about. So be good.
Yeah, and it can come back on you, can't it?
Of course it can.
100%.
Of course it can. I don't know where I was going with this, and I've completely probably just derailed that conversation. But you were talking about the Rat King.
Yes, So this is actually running around the graveyard, because there was a time before they opened the cemetery in Shrewsbury where the graveyards were getting overflowing because of cholera. So there's cholera outbreaks in my story, and the graves are literally, the coffins are bursting open. And at times she sees her dead brother, even though she's in a different century, because she feels so guilty about her brother's death in the hit and run, which I don't think I'm spoiling, because that comes out in chapter 1. Oh. She was supposed to pick him up. And,
spoiler alert. Yep.
Yeah, spoiler alert. But yeah, so I've tried to make it, it's just macabre, really. There's a lot, but I realise that's the way I write.
Again, macabre is great in a book. Yes. I love that. You've got to, I feel like, are you a bit edgy in the way you kind of tackle some of these things that you're talking about? There's like, there are deaths in there and executions, things like that. Do you feel like, and how did you approach that? Did you feel like, ooh, did you feel a bit naughty writing it? Like, I mean, how was that?
I did lots of research on exactly what would have happened, what it would have been like, and, the crowds jeering and laughing. And I mean, there's a bit, where the old market hall, they used to have the green and apple market there. It was all outdoor, wasn't it? So things got contaminated. There was the costard apples, which are actually prickly. They're extinct now. They're sort of, and the costard girls would sell them in baskets and sell the flowers and the watercress. Of course, we've got Butcher Row, haven't we, in Fish Street,
course,
and they'd have their placards and all of that. But what was I trying to say then?
About the macabre and the research you put into it.
Oh, yeah. When she first, it starts off in the 18th century when she finds herself there, like from the present day, she finds herself in a Georgian jail initially, and then there are time leaps. They go through past the old market hall that we all know, that we love, the old market hall. And they've got people in the pillories, which is like the stocks, but they were huge things, and people would throw missiles at them, even dead animals. So try and go into detail about that a bit. But she's hiding under the cart. She's on her way to the workhouse, but she thinks she's going to die. So I try and put in, but lots of details about what would have happened in those times in our town.
Wow.
But
what did that do to your mind? Did you doing all that research? Did you?
Sometimes now when I walk through Shrewsbury, I just see it as it was, because that's so much in my mind. Like, gosh, because there's so many houses that didn't get damaged during the war, did they? Like some areas are just desecrated, aren't they? And it's all modern stuff. But
me and Bibbs Cameron from the Civic Society, she's amazing. There's a lot for history here in Shrewsbury. We recorded a voice tour of medieval Shrewsbury, and that is, of course, round Bear Steps and all that area where you describe and Butcher Row that was the centre of Shrewsbury at the time.
Yeah.
And she was like, so we're standing on Butcher Row now. Imagine this place just stinking of just meat, and imagine all meat being out for sale, no refrigerators in the heat in the summer. Imagine what that would smell like, and what it would look like, all the blood running down the streets. Like, if you think of that and you stand there and you look at it, Butcher Row,
you think, could think of it in a completely different light.
Yeah, I see it like that. I mean, there were some animals were slaughtered there as well at one time before they had the slaughterhouses, especially pigs and things. And like you say, the blood would run down the street. And there was an archway at the bottom, which I always see, even though that's long gone, in my mind's eye. Don't visualize things. I don't hallucinate. I don't think.
I would love to time travel, and I think that's why books like the Workhouse Almanac, your book, I feel like they're really important, because it does take your mind on a wander.
Yeah.
And Kevin Horrock did the same with his book as well.
Kevin,
he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And it does offer an insight mentally as to, you can't really do that with a photo. You can look at a photo and go, that's nice. Whereas if you're like really like putting your mind into a book and you're really slowly reading these pages, you can really take you there.
Yeah, your imagination develops more from words on a page than it can do in either a photograph, as you say, or even motion picture.
Yeah,
words on a book just stimulates your mind more.
There was a thing on Facebook. It's very famous, but it was like a footage from like 1912 or something, 1910 or something. It was like footage that they'd remastered again until it was in like HD. Yeah. And it's like at the docks. I think it was in Liverpool or so. I don't know. I can't remember where it was. But I watched this footage over and over and over, because I was like, these people are all dead now.
Yeah.
This is like a completely different way of life for them. It was just like, I was mesmerized by it.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? History. Yeah. I'd love to go back in time.
What I'd like to ask, and this is probably something a very generic question to ask, is, this is your one shot at writing a book, right? This is not one shot, but like this is your first entrance as an author. Why the subject matter, and why Shrewsbury? Why you could have written about anything in the world?
Yeah, I think I just thought I'll write about what I know about, and what I like. So the protagonist is a female. She's actually, it's really strange because I've spoken to other authors since. The book started to write itself, and sometimes I was convinced that someone was guiding me or the characters were guiding me, because Yeah, I'm a heterosexual woman that's been married to a man for 25 years, but she started off heterosexual, and then I had to change it because she's actually gay. But of course, it was very difficult in Victorian times. Women had to live as sisters, didn't they? And although I don't go into that much, I mean, I'm not, I've made this book suitable for 14 plus, so there's no sex scenes or anything, but there's an intimacy there.
That's where you lost me.
Alex is out. He's out. I saw you flicking through the pictures.
Yeah.
But I do write about the intimacy between them and how difficult it was and how she tried to repress her sexuality as well at one point. But it just came out because normally you write about things you know about, don't you? And I found another author that said, I've started to write about other races as well, even though it's easier to write about your own race. So sometimes you get into research and things happen. But yeah, Shrewsbury is my passion, mental health nursing, my passion, and past treatment.
Yeah, see, I wrote a chapter. I always talk about this book. Have you listened to me talk about this book many times?
I've heard you talk about this mysterious book.
I'll have to show you the synopsis. It's in my sock drawer. It's been there since, I think, in fact, we disassembled the drawers when I lived in Dorley in Telford, put the drawers back up in Bellevue, disassembled the drawers again in Bellevue, and then moved here. And it's still in my sock drawer. The synopsis for this book. And one of them is talking about it's a place in Georgia. And the research that went into that was incredible because I did nothing but read about, I can tell you off air, but like towns and the way people were back when.
Yes.
And that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
When you're really far away from a place. So when you can just walk around Shrewsbury, you've got that available to you. So I see that.
Yeah,
that's
definitely,
easier to do.
Yeah.
And mental health as well. I mean, working around mental health, you must have seen changes from when you first started to up until now and how we treat people, right?
Completely. I think when we first trained, we were told if someone starts to talk about their beliefs and their delusional beliefs, you change the subject completely. Whereas nowadays, and I have progressed, I'm now a therapist. So I'm still under the NHS. I'm still working for the same trust, but I do more therapies with people. And you'd actually encourage people to talk about these things now. It was like you change the subject, you don't talk about it. And it was very much them and us, I think, when I first started, which wasn't what attracted me at all. I didn't like that side of it. So I like the way it has developed over the years. We've got peer support workers with lived experiences in our teams.
Yeah.
And they're invaluable for patients that want to know, well, what can I recover? Does recovery look like? Is it possible? Particularly as I'm in the eating disorder field at the moment. So people are okay listening to us who haven't had an eating disorder. But if you've got somebody that's recovered from anorexia or whatever, it's great.
I feel that that peer support is really, really important. And it was something we did with the ARC. It was a couple of weeks ago, and we were speaking to the guys from the Hepatitis C charity, right? So they were at the ARC, at Shrewsbury ARC, offering advice, tests, and medication for anybody of that community that might be affected by hepatitis C. And one of the guys, I forgot his name, I think it might be John. Forget if it's wrong, I forget. Sorry, I apologize. And he was like, "I'm an ex-addict. I've got hepatitis. I've had to live with this. I've had to live with the different changes in medication and how we deal with this." And he seemed like the perfect advocate to go out and help people.
Yeah.
And that, like you said, that's kind of invaluable, isn't it, to have that kind of experience? Because you can't go to someone, right, for your first few years of your education, you need to go and test out lots of heroin, get hepatitis C. You can't go and encourage someone to do that. And same with mental health. So I can see that.
It's really improved over the years, I think. Yeah.
Whereas a few years they were like, I'll hit the road. Oh God, words and stuff. This is Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury's deflated me today.
Shrewsbury Town. You got a lot to answer for, Shrewsbury Town.
Yeah. You're ruining the Shrewsbury Biscuit, guys. This is the effect you're having. So it's good to see that those changes have happened. But did you look at how bad things may have been when you first started and think how worse could it have got?
Yeah.
Is that?
I think so. I mean, the ECT is still around. Some people think that's stopped. Electroconvulsive.
Oh, really?
They still do that?
Still do it, yeah. And I've always thought, as someone that's attended as a nurse with a patient,
it's blown my mind.
Yeah, that actually I've seen massive improvements. I mean, it's very much a last resort for people that we've tried everything. The medication isn't working. We've given it sufficient time, sufficient dose. It's an intractable depression. Their life's at risk if we don't. I mean, when someone's about to go down to ECT, you have to sit with them because if they drink some water to make sure that, because you're not supposed to drink before anaesthetic, and are you?
Yeah, nil by mouth. And all
Nil
that.
by mouth, yeah. And a lot of people will be so depressed they will try and sabotage it for themselves, So it's not done as often perhaps as it used to be, but things like that do still happen and are still needed. Shelton's gone now. We've got the Redwoods, and obviously I've been up there. It's a lot better. People have got ensuite rooms, and it is better. It's more purpose built. But I think a lot of us that worked at Shelton do miss that. Even though you had the Nightingale wards, and I was part of the Shelton Heritage Project, and also I've set up the Shelton Facebook page. I'm like the administrator of that.
Cool.
And we've got like over 1,000 people in that, and some of them are ex-patients. We just have to monitor carefully that they don't disclose too much if they're vulnerable, but nobody has so far, to be fair. And so we've had stories from people, like I'm speaking to Phil Williams soon, who's in his 60s now, and he worked there from 14 or 15 as they used to call it a YOP or something, like a youth training sort of scheme. And he said some of the things I can tell you, Kate, now he's retired, about what it used to be like with the insulin therapy.
I love stories. I love things like that. Martin Wood, for example, our town crier.
Oh, yeah.
He used to work in the hospital, when the parade when it was a hospital. And when he came into our studio and we had it there, he was like, I used to work here. I was like, I know, I've heard about these stories, Martin. Yeah. The stories that people like can tell.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So we're going to meet Phil and I for a drink, and I'm going to record the session and get loads of info because, When
are you doing that?
Well, we were supposed to do it in January, but everything's just, so it won't be long off, probably May. I really need to...
Can I come?
Yeah,
Can I bring a microphone?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be fine with that. That'd be fun.
That'd be great. I'd love to get that because I've been saying this since day one. Again, Rich has been listening in Australia. Shane actually came up with the idea of Memoirs of a Salopian, which is to gather stories of people from yesteryear, the silver generation, or even the gold generation, who's about still, and talk about how things were back in. I sent this idea to BBC Sounds, and going and talking about how life was back then, and they declined it. So it's something that we can work on, I feel like, by ourselves. Definitely. And if there's a cry out for something like that, and that might be a good catalyst for it, It's
like Lorraine always says, there aren't many books actually written about what Shrewsbury was like. There's you can find lots of ad-lib stuff on the internet, but putting it together as well. And then also the second book will be talking about what it was actually like at Shelton, our psychiatric hospital, which was there from 1843 to 2012.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what we need to see.
That's it.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, well, that's what will attract people to reading it, knowing they're getting the warts and all.
Yeah, exactly.
And I gather from what you're saying, you're not holding back too much on the detail. So
no, I have to be careful because I've got to get my pension next year.
Well, we know you're going to collect your pension next year, but it's come to our attention that you've slandered the heck out of us in this book. I'm sure you haven't, but I get the idea. I work in support, so I know. The things you can and can't say. I have to dodge things. In fact, when I went to the Ark, one of our ex-customers from where I work came and said hello to me. I was like, "Oh, hi!"
Yeah.
So yes, it's a very, very interesting thing. When it comes to mental health, is there some things that you guys are, I wouldn't say shameful of, but when it comes to treatments and the way people are thought of in mental health, way back when, are those stories that you guys talk about? Oh, can you imagine what it was like back then when they used to do this and when they used to do that?
We do.
Have you covered that in the book?
Yeah, there's going to be in the second book. So there is stuff in here which is pre-Shelton, where doctors used to just write prescriptions. They used to have to pay for the prescriptions with their own money, but I've gone into that with a bit more detail. But leave it lying around with no labels on. It was often the night staff were drunk. This is at the workhouse, But it did happen probably at Shelton, but Shelton had its own farm. It had its own brewery. It was quite self-sufficient. When I worked there, they had the pig bin still. So when you were scraping the plates, they would go into a pig bin. I mean, I think the farm had gone, but they used to send it to a pig farm. And
that's quite cool, though.
Yeah. But so thinking about it, we used to hear stories that, ECT used to be given without muscle relaxant and anaesthetic because it would in those days. And some people didn't you can have a second opinion. They don't have to consent because it's just, but there were things going on. Cold showers, hot baths, and then cold showers. Not in my day. But having said that, I remember when there was 2 baths together, and I don't know if there was a curtain in between, and we'd bath 2 patients at one time. And also there was a shop that sold clothes in the grounds, and the patient shop. I've forgotten what it was called. There's pictures of it on the Shelton Hospital Facebook page. And we used to go and get loads of dresses and things there, and they'd be all hung up, and you'd choose one for the patient. They wouldn't have their own personal clothing.
Wow.
And that's even in my day. And I'm 53, am I? Something like that. Wow. But, I don't feel that old. It doesn't seem that long ago.
Things have changed in the way that mental health and support and things have. I mean, I've been doing it for 8 years, and things have changed, especially with mindsets, right? Okay, so mental health, especially a couple of years ago, I think maybe things are starting to open up a little bit more, but certainly a couple of years ago, funding was being taken away from all kinds of support, whether it's mental health, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's whatever. All funding sort of seemed to stop, and I think now we're starting to see the effects of that. Because there's certainly crimes up. I know Redwood's struggling at the moment. There seems to be they've pulled a lot of resources away from those people that needed help, and now they're crying out for the help, and they're struggling because they're overwhelmed with it all. Yeah. So I know that there are certain things that again. I'm talking generally, by the way, across the country. So don't fire me. I'm not talking about. No. I'm just saying, and you must have seen that yourself as well. It's quite a scary time, actually.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I think everyone I've worked with, I've felt I've had some great bosses, some great teams we worked with, and I felt everyone's been caring. And if there was anybody that we saw or anything we didn't like, they would, we'd get those to be got rid of. So I suppose there's always everywhere. There's always going to be somebody that's not doing things as they should. Yeah. I mean, there was that awful thing, wasn't there, in the Shropshire Star the other day about paramedics seeing
I saw
money.
That. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. And then he saw a camera and put it back, didn't he? And
I was joking with my wife about that earlier today, actually, because I was like, one of the first things I'm going to do when I hit the record is going to be like, and another thing, because this sentence was really lenient for someone that's done that terrible thing. What I was going to mention, the Changeling, one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's also it was I think it was to do with the 1930s LA weaponizing mental health care. Right. And locking people away because they didn't want them to speak or something like that. Yeah. And the conspiracies, I guess, are juicy, aren't they? People want a good conspiracy in a book, or they want something to be like, oh, you can't do that. Is there anything that you've included in this that you may have not? I wouldn't say you've heard of, because it's kind of very far fetched in some certain circumstances. But
yeah,
sometimes it's nice to throw a story like that in a book, isn't it? It's just too tempting.
Yeah, because we've heard, haven't we, the royal family, there was 2 people that were put away years ago. Because, of course, when I first started at Shelton as well, there were people with learning disabilities there. There was one woman that had been there since she was really young. I'm going to go by the... Yeah, I'm sorry I'm jumping around now. But one thing I have put in there was talk at the workhouse that there was a baby trafficking thing going on, because there was a lot of unmarried mothers that would go in there. And actually, they were made to wear... prostitutes were made to wear yellow, and unmarried mothers who were pregnant were made to wear red. So I found out lots of things like that. Whether it was just local to Shropshire, I don't know. But I've actually got a big storyline on that, how the workhouse master was impregnating these poor young girls, and the refectory was a bit underneath, like a dungeon underneath the workhouse, which is probably just used to store things. And, there's a mortuary down there. And but I've kind of, without spoiling too much, got a storyline on that, but managed to cover myself so that I'm not saying that's what happened.
Not incriminating anybody or anything.
No, hopefully not.
No, but I feel like, that's good. I hit that on the head. That was good investigational technique there from myself.
Yeah.
Well done, Wiley. Well done. So tell us about the Workhouse Almanac then, without spoiling it too much. What can people expect when they pick it up to read it?
they're going to hear the story of Jasmine, and I named her after my niece, actually, my brother's daughter, Jasmine, who is nothing like her, the character, but how she goes back in time. She tries to make amends and atone for what she feels are her past experiences, how she didn't save her brother Joe, but there's a Joseph in the story, and she thinks she might be able to save him, and she finds love again. But it's about how she learns that actually she can harness some of her powers, that she's actually got witchcraft in her. Yeah, I don't know, so they find out, they try and put things right, the other things that are going on, like the baby trafficking and the just the way people are being treated. So I'm probably not saying it very well, but what I try to do is try and make...
Yeah, you're doing well. It sounds great.
Mad Jack Mitten's mentioned. I mean, do you remember, you've probably heard of him. He's the Mitten Hotel on the old A5. Yeah. Yep. He kind of had a room there, but he was crazy in his time. He was like an aristocrat, but he was he used to ride bears through the living room and do all sorts of things. What did he do? And there's loads of
Can you
stuff.
imagine if you're super rich back then? What can I do with all...
You would definitely do that.
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, like, back in the day when there's no TVs, you could be like, what can I do with all of this money? I don't know. I'm going to get a polar bear and ride it through the garden.
Yeah, he could do anything, couldn't he? But I incorporate his funeral going over the old Atcham Bridge, that they meet the funeral corsage, because it did go past that hotel, which was one of the last places he lived, but he was buried in Oswestry. So to actually incorporate that into the storyline, and a bit about Darwin, Charles Darwin. Unfortunately, the one place that won't take my book at the moment is the museum shop. Sort of, I thought they would, but I've got to convince them. I've given a copy, I've emailed them. They're saying it has to be about what we've got going on in the museum at the time. And I said, yeah, but we've got all this about Darwin. It was the Festival of Darwin this year. Dickens, Great Expectations been filmed. This book is about...
Which I've yet to see, by the way. I've heard the bad reviews on Great Expectations that was filmed, the Tom Hardy thing that was filmed here in Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
I've not seen any of it either.
I like it.
It's not made over to Australia yet.
No. I like it, but it's very different to the book. You've got to be prepared, haven't you, to sort of think, oh, well, it's an adaptation on it. Like Peaky Blinders, it's the writers of Peaky Blinders, isn't it? And that glorifies Birmingham gangs, but I loved that as well. So
yeah, I like the grittiness of it. I did with Peaky Blinders. I like that you didn't know what was going to happen next. What I liked about that was I used to listen to it when my wife was in bed, because I work nights, so I'd stay up to like 3 o'clock in the morning, ready for my night shift the night before. Yeah. And I put my headphones on and listen to it like that. And there's always that scene where you walk through the steel mills and stuff, and you'd hear the fire behind him. Yeah. And with my headphones on, oh my God, that sounded so sexy. It was like you were at the cinema. You could feel it. Like, that's why I liked it.
Yeah. Dolby stereo.
It's very immersive, very immersive.
Yeah.
Speaking of being really immersive, how hard is it to paint the picture of Shrewsbury? How hard is it to take the reader in your own mind as you're writing it and drop them right into Shrewsbury or into whatever environment you got them in, the workhouse, what have you? How hard is it to paint that picture?
I found it all right, actually, because I take them through the journey of the streets. So there's lots about Mardle, where the prostitutes were, and that's on the night of the show. So she goes to the show and she's all dressed up, and I describe the old-fashioned Victorian dress she'd wear and everything that used to go on at the show. And they're going back to the workhouse that night, and they encounter drunks and prostitutes. And so you get to know what Mardle was like. You get to know what Butcher Row, Fish Street, the old market hall, the quarry. And, they used to say there was lots of houses built on the back of the front shops that were they were just like hovels, really. And then they were like pulled down. Well, she meets one of the character's great aunts who lives there, and it's so dilapidated, this cottage. She's small, but she ducks to go in, and she looks around, and it's awful and it's damp, but they invite her upstairs, and it's beautiful upstairs, and she's like, what? And they've whitewashed the walls, and there's all this, she's a witch, she's a white witch, so there's all potions and things up there, and tables full of candles and things. You might like that bit, Alex, because looking at the Wiccan bit, and so it's very magical as well. It's very, I've described it as historical fantasy fiction, because there is a lot of fantasy and witchcraft in it. Yeah. But hopefully it's done well. I've done proper spells in it that I've looked up. I haven't got their imagination probably to make me open up.
But
So, yeah.
it's good to include that into. I mean, I feel like I had an idea years and years and years ago. Again, I probably shouldn't say this on the show. Someone will steal it, but if you steal it, if you're going to write it, do it well. I had the idea of writing a story about the Napoleonic Wars and taking an English soldier and a French soldier and starting them off at different points and then meet them up in the middle, right?
Like that.
And then they swap places.
Yeah.
Like they have like a mind swap thing. So the French is in the body of an English soldier and the English in the French soldier, and they learn about each other's cultures and stuff. And they're like, "Why are we doing this?" And it's all about So
That's good.
Yeah, I like the idea of taking something that is traditionally historical and adding an element that kind of lets you sort of dive in a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Like, some sort of, whether it's something to do with the occult or whether it's some science fiction or something like that, so you can sort of dive in deeper and sort of almost eavesdrop.
Yes, yeah, what it was like then.
Yeah.
Well, I did get some feedback off Bloomsbury. I'm like one of these strange people that tried to go to all the big publishing houses to see how I got on. And actually, Nigel, God, I've forgotten his second name, but Nigel, who actually got the Harry Potter books going, got his chief editor in charge to have a look. And he said, the only thing is, Kate, you've got 2 books going on here. You've got a history book and they're fiction. So he gave me loads of tips on how to do it, but they always say, don't bother coming back to us though. I don't know if you know, that's the etiquette.
All right.
You can't go back like, I've done what you said. What do you think? Will you have another look? So there are other people I can try for my next book, because I think I love Amazon. It's great. It's done me well. But if I can get off Amazon, because I'm having to buy all these at author's price and distribute them to the shops, as well as working full time. And then, another thing I wanted to plug as well is the Shrewsbury Library Writers Lab.
Writers Lab, yeah.
I'm in that.
Yeah.
I don't go as often as I should, because I can't really because of work.
Well, I've actually got a few days off soon. So I was thinking, because they asked me to speak there, Joe's great. And he's like, maybe you should come and do a talk. And I was like, yeah, but I don't really, I'm not a writer. And he's like, yeah, but, okay, whatever.
That'd be brilliant.
So I don't know what I'd say to a room full of authors. The people are much, much more cleverer than me. You know what I mean?
So you've got lots of journalistic experience.
I'm just a chatterbox. That's all I am.
That'd be great. You should come, yeah.
We should hook you up with some local authors, because I feel like, with you being all the way in Australia.
Oh yeah, mate.
Australia. By the way, that was so funny last week. We were at Attingham Park at the field of play.
Yeah.
And we had the kids, so Timmy and Rich's kid, and they went running off, and we were like, right, we've got to grab him again. So Rich goes running up the hill to grab his kid.
Yeah.
And he's like, right, and I shouted, right, we got to go, kid. And Rich turned around and he was like,
that was mortified. Really,
everybody could hear me, and he was like, that was terrible. I was like, I know. But yeah, because I feel like local literature, where it comes from, anywhere in Shropshire, it kind of not only does it keep you in the loop, but it lets you know who's creative.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'd be certainly be interested in having a read of this, the Workhouse Almanac. It sounds interesting. Like, take me back into olden days Shrewsbury, but with a twist to it.
Yeah. The Writers Lab is a great place, because there's also great advocates for, Laura from Raven Bookshop, in the market hall, and there's also Penguin Books as well up on Fish Street. Caroline's great. She's so brilliant.
Yeah,
like her and Violet Fenn. I think we did a podcast together, and then we started talking about something to do with feminism. And I was the only bloke in the room, of course.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, yeah, but what about... what about...
You didn't stand a chance.
It was like a kung fu movie. It was fantastic. I loved it. But yeah, there are great advocates for...
They are. They're all stock in my book, which I was really pleased about. So number 61, which is where one of my friends, Emily Warner, does her jewellery. She makes rings like this, which are great.
Follow me on Instagram, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, she probably does. She does the Raven, I forgot the name of it, but if you look up Emily Warner, she does beautiful jewellery there and doing really well.
Oh, fantastic.
They've got some of my books there as well. But
right.
So it's just work to do next, whether to try and get it in all over Shropshire, because I think some places, maybe like Ludlow, Church Stretton, might want it. I'd like to.
Well, we got listeners in people that own businesses and stuff. So maybe if you're listening to this and you would like to stock the Workhouse Almanac, please get in touch. How can people get in touch with you if they did? want to sort of
well, I'm on Facebook with my name. Kate Mclanachan, author, is the name of the page. I'm just trying to think how else.
Is there an email? Have you got a website? Or
I haven't got a website yet, but people keep offering to do it for me. But yeah, I've got an email, which is it's actually written down in here somewhere. Kate Mclanachan, author @gmail.com. But it's whether people can spell the name, you see.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's McLanachan. But yeah, if you just get in touch with me.
Yeah, I think it's on there.
And get in touch with me and I'll get in touch with Kate. Yeah, so it's Kate Mclanachan .author @gmail.com. So if you've got a business and you want a local author, a local book to be featured in your store, please get in touch, because it is important, and it doesn't matter where you are actually in Shropshire. If you're someone in Ludlow, stock the book, because I think it's great. And do you have a lot of exposure to other authors around Shropshire? Is there a good community of you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I contacted Kevin recently and we had a chat, and he was giving me lots of advice, because he said what I need is my own ISBN number, and then I can get it sort of more widely spread and things like that. He gave me loads of advice, and I went to see him at the market. He had his book.
Mildred the Crazy Cat Lady.
Yes, yeah. And I had a chat and bought his book. And yeah, so meeting lots of local people, especially through the Shrewsbury Library Writers Lab. But also on, I've got 2,000 followers on Facebook, but I've realised that you kind of have to follow each other. It's follow me, follow you.
Yeah.
And in the end, they're not necessarily people that will buy your book. So I'd rather connect with authors.
That's when it comes to setting up podcasts and things like this. So like, for example, right, the Alan Tom of it all, we started off a brand new podcast, and what people tend to do is they invite all their friends to the Facebook page, and all their friends to the Instagram page, and start following it, give me a like, and then you end up with nothing, no likes, nobody looks at your stuff. So the Alan Tom of it all is sitting there now. I think we've got like 20 followers on Facebook, 13 on Instagram, but we're getting way more likes on our posts on Instagram than you would do if you had like hundreds of people. It all works on who wants to actually be there. And that's really, really important. So if you're starting a new podcast or anything, do not invite all your friends and your family to your Facebook page, because they'll just sit there and do nothing. So, and that's really, really important. Kevin's great. We'll have to get him back on. I haven't had him on the show for a long time. And Kevin Horrock, he's a great guy. I love him so much, honestly. He invited me to, he does a lot of gigging in town, DJ Foxy. But he's always on a night when I'm either recording or working, so we'll have to sort that out. What's next then? You talk about book 2.
Yeah, I've started writing. I'm on chapter 3, and it's probably going to be called Shelton Lunatic Asylum. I'm a bit worried about putting the word lunatic in, but that's what it used to be called. And
I think probably more guide people towards it than not. People that are interested in that kind of writing.
Was it? I was watching some old news footage, and they said, "Oh, he's a bit of a lunatic," and he was on the news, and I was like, as if they just said that, like describing someone, and they're like, "Well, they think he's a bit of a lunatic," and I was like, "Wow, they didn't care." So I feel like if you put that there, that's kind of like it's speak of yesteryear. It's like okay. So the great analogy is, young people are now apparently offended by Friends.
Yeah. How?
And Friends, the TV show.
Friends, the TV show. And I'm like, well, and we were talking about Roald Dahl as well, me and Tom Bruno. I was talking about, but that was the language of the time.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. I'm like dead against the rewriting. Not against it, but I'm totally against it. I feel like you should never retake and you can't rewrite history, right? So
we talk about the anti-drag movement. Weird anti-drag movement that's going on in Florida at the moment. I'm not going to say America because it all seems to be Florida. You have to go back as far as the Romans or Greece to stop that from happening. So that's just not going to happen at all. So
no, we've had statues pulled down in certain places, haven't we? Because it it symbolised slavery or, bad things.
Yeah.
Didn't they want Clive of India removed from the...
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence for that one. I feel like it shouldn't be moved. It shouldn't be pulled down. It could be moved.
Yeah.
As a symbol of this is what happens with oppression, folks.
Yeah.
Like this thing did happen. I don't necessarily feel like it should be like thrown in the river like they did in Bristol. I feel like these are. It's almost a martyr thing now. Okay, so this is what happens when someone profits highly off the trade of human beings. This is what happens. Put it in a museum or something, or find a way to positively tell that history.
Yeah.
I think if you can't, you can't erase history, obviously, and even if you could, then you wouldn't learn.
Exactly.
You wouldn't learn from the history. You wouldn't learn from the mistakes, and those mistakes would indefinitely repeat themselves.
Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, the Statue of Liberty it really should be offensive to all British people because the French were like, "Thanks for helping us get rid of the British. Here's a giant statue," and that's literally what it is. So, I mean, like, if you wanted to get like absolutely, with statues, are the British going to go and pull the Statue of Liberty? No, we're not.
No.
In fact, we're all there taking pictures of us trying to hold it up or whatever,
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is great because it's very creative. It's inclusive when it comes to, the witchcraft side of things, and also mental health. Mm-hmm. Really, really important that you're doing it, and you're doing it locally as well. Because I don't feel like there is a voice for people, a lot of people with mental health issues at the moment.
No, I don't think there is. It's a lot better than it used to be. There was a real stigma in the past, and patients noticed that all the time. And, whereas now things have changed, but yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. And I'm definitely an advocate for mental health. I've always there for my patients,
This is why I openly talk about my social anxiety an awful lot on the show. I do it on purpose, really, because it can be debilitating at times. It can really affect me. And in fact, it can be quite embarrassing when, because I am quite professional with the biscuit. I've had a few problems with my scheduling over the last week, but when it comes to like who I speak to and the things we go out and about and do town, I do come across, but like if I'm going to an event, I'll pace the room, I'll change my outfit, I'll write notes, I'll then leave the notes at home. I wrote them just out of panic. Do you know what I mean? Like things like that. And I feel like, the more I talk about it and the more you write about it and the more we're all talking about it.
Yeah.
The more it comes into the conversation a lot easier,
Yeah, it breaks that stigma. I mean, on the way here, I was sat in the car and I actually feel a bit sick reading in the car off my phone, but I was thinking, I'm just going to have a look at my reviews again, because what if he asked me about the book? Because it sounds stupid, but you feel like you're going to go blank, And I think we live in a very stressful times. You talked about your children. I've got 2 boys that went through COVID, in their year 1 at uni and 1 at last year in school, and I think people have been really affected by it. We've had a lot of people with eating disorders through COVID by trying to get healthy because there was no PE, and they've developed it. But it's not just COVID, is it? We're in a society now where certainly when I was at school, they didn't care whether you passed or not. But now there's so much pressure put on young people. It looks bad on the school if you don't do it. You need to work harder.
It's not good for developing young minds to put that much pressure on them, and it shouldn't necessarily be about the sort of grades that they're getting, but more about the journey and the process to get where they need to be.
That's it. Yeah. A lot of pressure, isn't there, nowadays?
I feel like we are making the right moves in the right direction. I feel like people are trying to pull us back, but I feel like we're kind of strong in our stance. I think when it comes to empathy and compassion and thinking of others, I feel like we are making a move in that right direction.
Yeah.
So I am feeling positive about the future. But it doesn't stop me from getting angry when I see some horrific comments. Kid Rock shooting rainbow flavored Coors Lights because they're too woke. I don't know, but it's very encouraging to see the reactions to things like that. But Kate, honestly, thank you so much for coming on the show. Honestly, I love getting in the mind of an author, especially with the whole mental health background, because it is really important to see that you're taking those experiences and putting them into good use. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you. Really enjoyed coming on. It was great as well because it was a bit last minute today, wasn't it? I was invited.
It was.
That was great.
we had rescheduled this morning, but we'll get those guests on again. But I wanted to include a podcast today because I wanted to get you on, Rich. Because
shucks, thanks.
Because you're going back to Australia soon,
Monday. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'll be heading home.
Yeah.
Long
Are you looking forward to getting home, or is it mixed emotions?
Yeah, it's always mixed emotions when I leave because obviously, you know, I love the area, Shropshire. Obviously, my friends, seeing the Pod King in action.
The Pod King.
No, but yeah, it is hard to leave. Obviously, leaving family and stuff like that behind. But I know I'll be back. You know, it might take me a few years to get here again. But
you've always got the Shrewsbury Biscuit as well.
Exactly that. Yeah.
You miss it home.
Exactly that. I've got that to enjoy in the pub.
But no, seriously, thank you because you literally took the Shrewsbury Biscuit to Australia. And I don't know whether that's from you or whether we've done it organically, but we have got a steady listener base in Australia now.
That's good to hear. Yeah,
wow.
Nice. Yeah.
Which is great. So if you're listening to us in Australia, I know you are, by the way, because I see you. That's it. That's what I was meant to ask you before we sign off. Analytics. Are you living by analytics at the moment? Or do you check it every day?
I do check, not every day now, but unfortunately it is nearly all, at the moment it's all United Kingdom. I had a little bit of the USA. The book has gone to friends in Australia and in New Zealand.
Right.
But not being purchased over there. So, but there's Amazon.co.uk. There's lots of different ones. So some of my reviews aren't even showing up on the UK side, but they've been done by people, you know, so it's a bit hard to tell.
Here's a test then, right? Okay. So if you're listening to this now, what I want you to do is go, if you're in Australia, we'll use Australia as an example. Okay. If you're listening to Australia and whatever countries you're in, right? Let's see. There you go. That's even better. Mm-hmm. Let's see how many countries we can get Kate's book sold in from the power of this podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast now and you bought a book on the power of it, write on your review on Amazon on the power of the biscuit, right, on your review, and we'll know that you've listened to the podcast and you've gone out and bought a book. I definitely would love it if somebody in Australia right now could buy the book and write the power of the biscuit at the bottom of your review. That'd be great, wouldn't it? And if you get one, you have to let me know, okay?
I will.
On the power of the biscuit. By the power of the biscuit, I'm going to put it on the readout as well. So make sure there'll be a link on the readout of this podcast. Hit the link, buy the book, buy the power of the biscuit on the review. There we go.
Oh, thank you very much for plugging it for me.
No, it's great. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Rich, for being our guest co-host.
Thank you for having me on and been a pleasure talking to you, Kate. It really has.
And to you, Rich. Yeah.
Really good.
Both of you, thanks.
We will catch you guys next time. Thank you. If you're tuning in to The Biscuit for the first time, make sure you give us a follow. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're also on TikTok. We're everywhere you can be. So give us a follow. And make sure if you enjoyed this episode, just give it a share with your friends. A bit of a nudge in the right direction is really, really appreciated. And those likes and those shares, they mean the world to us. They really do. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Thank you. Peace out. By the power of the biscuit, that was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed that one. It's really nice sometimes when you just hit record and you forget you're doing a podcast, if that makes sense. You're just sitting there chatting. And those are the best episodes. And that's kind of what that was there. Of course, within the first 5 minutes, people are really conscious of the microphones and stuff. And, it can be, but within 5 minutes, we have a great conversation. We're laughing, we're joking, and people tend to forget. So that's the kind of vibe I got from that. So thank you, Kate, for A, coming on and being a great guest, and B, for coming on such short notice as well and delivering a great podcast. Honestly, I really enjoyed this one. The Workhouse Almanac is fantastic. So please, again, buy the book. And by all means, go to Amazon and write a review that says, by the power of the biscuit, and wherever you are in the country. Kate will get the analytics on that, and it'll tell her where in the country you've bought it. So let's see how far we can get this spread, shall we? I know you guys are around the world listening to the show. I see you guys. I see you. So just do us a favor and do Kate a favor and do something nice. There. Right. Okay. So I've got to tell you guys about a couple of events that we've got coming up. Starting off with Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels, an evening with the Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels. It's on the 13th of May. Now this is going to be such a good event. We're going to be I'm going to be doing a Q&A with one of the best bands in the UK. I keep saying in the UK, and I genuinely mean that, in the UK. The Dirty Rockin', you can have it, guys. The Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels. If you've never seen the Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels live, you're honestly in for a treat. Take my word for it. And if you have seen them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's at Shrewsbury High School. It's on the 13th of May, and it's only £10. And you're going to have an evening of great music, great audience interaction, and we do the Q&A. The bar's cheap. It's over 18s only. Over 18s only. But it's a cheap night. Get a babysitter in. Come out. Have a great time. And as well, when you come out, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be raising money for a great charity. Kate Vaughan is going to be doing the London Marathon, raising money for Whiz Kids, a charity that helps disabled children to get access to wheelchairs, walking frames, and whatever they need to become independently mobile. And so that's what that's for. So you'll be helping a great charity. You'll be going out having a great night, enjoying some great music, and you'll see the biscuit guy. But I will be there as well doing my thing. So make sure you get that in your calendar ready. So that's an evening with the Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm having a look on my calendar to see when this is going to be released. Okay, so 29th, next weekend, we've got Drawn. Which is happening at the Flax Mill. That whole weekend, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a gathering of some of Shropshire's finest artists. I think Charlie Adlard's even said he's going to be doing stuff there. There's going to be stuff for the kids. There's going to be lots of art on sale. And we're going to be there as well, doing lots of videos, lots of interviews, we're going to be doing so much with that. It's a free event. Come along and come and buy some art. Come and speak to artists. Come and get inspired. That's Drawn. There is a Facebook page for that as well. Just type in Drawn. You'll see the beautiful orange logo pop up on Facebook. You can click on that, give it a follow, and you will see lots of pictures and stuff coming up from the event. You'll also see the event right there as well. So that's Drawn. So that's two great events and a great podcast we've got for you guys, and a book as well. There's a book there you can read and enjoy if you really, really want to. I do highly recommend it though. So anyway, I'm going to leave you guys. You've heard my waffle now for over an hour. We'll catch you guys next time on the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. We really do appreciate you. Peace out.